What's up, everybody? Here, Strifix. I'm going to be bringing you another video. We're going to be talking about the bronze to diamond build orders. We're going to keep them simple, but we're going to keep them concurrent. It's easy to adapt and still carry you to the higher level as you get better and beyond the diamond play. So what we do, or the goal between this, is to basically make it very simple to follow, less APM intensive, and a little bit simple goals, and then you'll progress and you'll get better, and then you'll advance kind of in the build order to where you see pros, the amateurs kind of playing, and the higher level players. So we're going to dive in here. I'm bringing you a Terran versus Zerg build in this one. So got a little replay loaded as well, guys. Also, if you haven't checked it out, I will be uploading the guys in chat tournament that happened yesterday, and I was casting as the C stream. There was very good games there, but definitely check those out as I upload them. I got to edit and take out some of the downtime, but Jason versus Bly was a really good one. Special versus Parting, even though I missed game 2, was a really good one. You'll see several games from where I got to stream live. Special thanks out there to Rails and Artosis. You can catch Rails at Rails TV, and that's Rails with a Z TV on Twitch. And Artosis, of course, is Artosis and Twitch, which most people are going to know his, but follow them, guys. The reason I got to cast that is because of them. But let's jump back into this video. So in this video, we're going to be talking about a simple TvZ build. It's not one you're going to see often, but it's so easy to execute. And if you tune into my stream when I'm playing, I use these builds sometimes just to show people that, hey, it will get you to diamond without much problems. But the thing I do is I take these builds and I simplify them. I add small adjustments, but I simplify them. But they're not so far out of the way that you can't progress and like they're totally different build orders. So it's not cheese, it's none of that. It's just a simple, safe, easy to execute build. And it's still somewhat standard, but it's a different variation of standard. There is some cons, but there's some advantages as well. The advantages are that it requires less APM, it's easier to execute. The disadvantages are you're not basically with like some of the openings where you're controlling a little bit more, or maybe you get a little bit more information, you're not going to get that as much. But when you're playing at the lower level, to be honest, that isn't something that you probably need to focus on at that moment because you don't even know what you're scouting for. All right, so guys, let's, without further ado, jump on into this replay. I did set it up against the easy AI. But we're going to jump into my vision. So, of course, you're going to start your SEV. I wouldn't even worry about splitting unless you get used to it. Usually, if you split, you want 2 to 3 SEVs here, 2 to 3 SEVs, and then put it over here to the far left mineral patch. I turn on Empower. As you can see, I did there at the last second. Let's turn the music off. That we don't want. All right, so the first thing is we're going to set up our hotkeys. You know, you can set up your camera location hotkeys during the first time frame. You do want to use those if you want to learn more about them. Look in the hotkey, short key type tutorial. That's a very good one. I actually recommend a lot of people, the 2 first things I always tell people to do when they're learning is learn your hotkeys, your short keys, get very good at them, understand them, use your keyboard as much as you physically can, and the mouse for everything you can't do with a keyboard. Now, after that, you need a build order, or along with that, you need a build order. So I think 2 of these go hand in hand. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to rally. I rally out here, and what I do is I hotkey the SCV and I'll stop it here. And what that does, that prevents me from having to look over here. And not only that, I can hit my F2 camera hotkey and do it there. Some people ask me why. I just do that, and then I follow the SCV, and I never have to use my screen movement with the mouse or anything to come out here and actually try to focus the camera. I just followed the SCV. First SCV comes out, so we're going to do a supply depot for the wall. You can do it here, or you can do it here. Whichever that you choose, it's up to you. So you're going to see me come down here. There we go. Supply depot does go down right there. And we're going to continue. Of course, you never stop your SCV production. So we're going to continue to make SCVs. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have a slight cap probably by the time, because this one's going to pop out, one more is going to make, and then there's going to be a slight waiting period for the third SCV. We consider this in the first one, and the second, and the third. And what we're going to do, we're going to drop down a barracks as quickly as we can, and then we're going to talk about how you drop down that barracks. SCV ready. So there's the SCV. Going to keep going. The goal here is going to be to get a barracks, and then we're going to get a gas, and we're going to get that barracks on 15 here. So this is going to come out, and they're almost near the same time, so be ready. Notice we got the cab here, there's there, and then I'm going to talk about something here on this wall. Now, this is up to you. What I do is I leave a space because I'm going to get a reactor. You can, if you want to, build this up on the wall, put the supply depot, and then when you go to build a reactor, you know exactly where to place it. After a while, you'll get used to it, and you might keep it out here. One of the disadvantages is if they open 12 pool, it can be a little aggravating without it being right up against here and being the ability to just finish up the wall because you have it out of there, but it's not undefendable. The disadvantage is it's right here, and of course you have to pick it up, shift it, and that's lost time for anything with the factory if it's slowing down the add-on by a second or two. Yeah, so in the build order, you always take your barracks, and then right when you get 75 gas, you need to go ahead and take your refinery. You want that as quick as possible, nearly at the same time here. Now, there's different variations where you can get the gas first, but in this build, we're doing barracks and then gas, and that's considered a standard now. So from here, we're going to SCV up. We're going to put a total of 3 on the gas once it finishes, and we're going to wait for the barracks to finish, and then we're going to talk about from there. I'll talk about more in the deviations of this build to give it a little bit of adjustments, but first we're just going to go over what you see here, and then I'm going to go back and we can talk a little bit about the adjustments in this build. So make sure you keep building SCVs. One of the first things you want to learn is trying to learn how to do the SCVs non-stop. SCV ready. Gonna keep them building. Gas is gonna be finished, so I need to pull 2 SCVs onto the gas. There we go. So 3 SCVs on gas mining. I'm gonna wait for this barracks to finish, then we're gonna make a Reaper out of it and get the orbital command as well, which should be on 19, I believe. Oh, there we go. So we're going to do this on 19. All right, so what I want to do is, should be getting orbital, let's see. Orbital, Reaper, there we go. All right, so what we're going to do from here is we're going to scout. Y'all hear that in the background, I apologize. But what we're going to do, we're going to scout. So when you finish this barracks, what you need an SCV to come down here and build the next command center for your natural. So you're going to make a Reaper, orbital, sorry. Not a Reaper, a Marine with this build. I'm used to Reaper, but this is a Marine in this one. All right, so go down here, build the command center. Remember, this is going to be a Marine, then we're going to get a reactor. I forgot I'm used to doing Reaper. Reaper is more the standard, but when you're lower APM, sometimes going to Reaper just doesn't benefit you enough. A Reaper is strictly made in a scout. It really, in the end, it doesn't really get a lot of damage. Some lower players, you can get a few drones if they don't know their build order. But in most cases, you're better off not going to Reaper, because I find that some people tend to focus too much on the Reaper, and then the next thing you know, they're messing up their build order, or they're hurting themselves more than they're doing good, even though they killed a drone or two. Like they forgot to build SCVs or something. All right, so let's go back. So we're going to do, remember, Marine and orbital, usually whichever you can do. It depends on how they line up. You can do them nearly at the same time. If you're waiting for the barracks to finish, or right when the barracks finishes, you can do the orbital. I try to do orbital instantly after and then Marine, but you can do Marine and orbital. Doesn't really matter about the order. And then we're going to pull the SCV down to get ready to take the command center after we start our 1 Marine. So this will go down before this Marine finishes. And then this SCV's whole purpose is to scout the Zerg. So we're not going Reaper, so we can't really skip the scout. So get in the habit of definitely using the SCV in this build. So the SCV is going to go across. We're going to kind of keep track of that on the mini-map. There goes the command center as well. Just focus on the Terran up here. Don't worry about the AI. Just focus up here. So we're going to have the 1 Marine, then we're going to get the reactor here, and then we're going to get the second depot. That's kind of what the build's going to look like. So we got the 1 Marine. Going to get the reactor. Oh, sorry, depot, reactor. There we go. From there, we do got the command center down. And I should be making an SCV and dropping the mule here. There we go. Notice my minerals is low, everything's looking good. The only thing in this build is that your gas spikes a little bit, but you will be spending it pretty soon as well. All right, so notice what the SCV is going to do here. So we're going to focus on this SCV since there really ain't much anything else could do here. We're waiting for this. I can get a factory once 150 minerals. So here we go. We're going to come into here. Going to look. This is AI, so I don't expect much. But if a hatchery is finishing or it's really close to finishing, when you get over here on most maps to the natural, it should be like a second or two from finishing or to be already finished. That's usually a sign that it's hatchery first when you scout at this timing. That's a hatch first. Now, if you scouted a different timing, that can be totally different. Remember, I scouted after the barracks finishes with that SCV, so I get used to the timing. Sometimes it's finished, sometimes it's very close to being finished, but if it's like in the yellow or something or halfway when I get to here, then something's up, and I'm probably going to take this SCV up in here to see if there's speed being done, or if it's going to be a roach warren really quick, or maybe he's going to bangling's nest behind this, and this is just something to level out with it. So I'll go on in there, but once it's hatched first, you just turn around. There's nothing else you're going to be able to scout that's really going to give you anything without staying in there too long and losing the SCV. We don't want to lose the SCV. And this build don't really deviate it. It kind of defends anything too crazy, I feel like, as well. So we're just going to bring that back. Assume that it's a hatchery first because that's the most common. Like I said, if it's yellow or halfway when you get over here or closer to halfway in the build process, you'll need the hit points bar on. Then you want to come up to here and take a look how many gases there is. You know, does he got the spawning pool? Is it moving to where he's getting speed? And if it's not moving, is he going a roach warren, or is there a bangling's nest in there somewhere? So you're just going to do like a circle in here. If he's got speed, I pretty much go back out. If he don't, I kind of keep circling in there to see what's going on and see if he ever starts speed as well. Because if he doesn't, then something might be up. He might be hiding it from you. But the longer you're in there, the more you're delaying it as well, which is great. But overall, even if you don't, I feel like this build is so solid against, like, I'll be honest, this build to me is very solid against all ends. It's very solid against all ends, but it's very not as controlling against greedy Zergs. Like, I feel like if Zerg is very greedy, they can take a lot of advantage on you on this build. Because you don't got the Hellions in this build, which you're going to see. You don't got the Reaper, so I can't really slow down this third. I mean, I could take the SCV, and maybe you don't got a Overlord, and this third starts around 3 minutes or something, and I can build a bunker, right? And I can do small things like that, but it's risky to do that, because if he comes out with Lings and he catches your Marines going across, it's going to be tough. So usually it's safe to not do none of it. And I just bring the SCV back and let him play his game. You know, the goal isn't, like I said, usually most people, you're going to get to diamond without even really having to figure out what they're doing once you get your mechanics down. And this is a good starting point for that. Now, if I was using this build, me personally, what I would do is I probably would scout again around 3 minutes. And what I'm going to do is look for over here or something there, or something at some point like that to know. If I was really skittish and wasn't sure what they were going to do, but I have done this build on stream, and it's been completely no problems in most cases for me even getting the diamond. Like, I get the diamond very easily with it. I don't even think I dropped but one game, and I think it was against the Master Zerg, and I did this build, and what I did is I moved out actually too soon, and he was going Roach Ravager, and I picked up on it a little too late, which is one of the disadvantages. I should have caught on to it, but I didn't. I lacked on the scouting mid-game, which was what this build really, you can still scout mid-game with no problems. All right, so jump back over there. So we built this supply depot that finishes. What I like to do, I like to take that SCV and I build this second gas. So what you want to do is we're going to get the reactor. So, we started this. We start the reactor after the Marine. You might have to pick up the barracks and float it over here and kind of make sure you're walling off with the reactor. We're going to put down the factory after the reactor once we get the minerals and gas, and then we're going to take our second gas. Now, if you don't get this second gas, shortly after this factory goes down, when you get the minerals, you're going to find yourself delaying a lot in this build order. And you don't want to do that because the strength of this build order, I feel like, does so good against the early dumb stuff off of hatch first. It just does so good because you get the earlier tank. And the earlier tanks just not easy to push up on with Zerg, in my opinion.
Add-on complete.
Because most time you're going to have about 2 tanks before you can really even do too heavy of an all-in. A small all-in with like a few roaches, 1 tank's just going to be detrimental. He's going to turn right away, or he's going to lose everything, and you're going to hardly lose anything. So instantly, notice I waste no time. I get on the gas as well. I do build a bunker after I start the 2 Marines. So once I start the 2 Marines, you know, so it's reactor, factory, gas, start the 2 Marines, and then I put my bunker down. Now, you can put your bunker down earlier if you choose to. But most of the time, 1 Marine in a bunker just isn't going to do a lot. And usually I feel like you're better off trying to get these 2 out and then start it, because he's not going to have speed. Most Zergs are not going to have speed at this time frame. So having a few Marines is good. You need to get a little bit comfortable on how to deal with slow lings. So this is one of them things, you might lose some games, but this is something you really want to work on, because you don't want to get this too early that it really messes up your build. So I'd say, like, prioritize the Marine, get down to bunker. You know, believe in yourself here. With the 3 Marines, usually you can take on 6 Zerglings with no problem. If it's a lot more coming in and they're slow, just back up, lift this, let this finish, or attempt to let it finish, see if you can lift. And if you can't, and he starts hammering on the some, lower there, bring 4 or 5 SCVs if you need to. Come down here and try to regain this ground and get these up here, and especially at least this command center, get it finished, and then go from there, and then just put the SCVs on these minerals if this finishes. But most time on Hatch first, he's not going to get over here quick enough to cancel this. Now what he will be coming up here. If he makes 4 layings, and let's say he notices you don't have a Reaper, and he's coming over here, you know, you might see 6 layings, but 4 is the standard. This is going to be finishing almost the time that he gets over here. There will be no speed, though, from the Zerg, but this will finish about the same time he gets there, or to come in about that time, and you're usually able to get in there before he can actually get you really well. All right, so jumping back over here, we got 2 more Marines. We can put them in there as well. Notice we keep making SCVs instantly into orbital. Now let's back up here a little bit, because I feel like this is one of them things that can deviate a little bit, and we'll talk about it some. So right here, the factory's done. So what I could do, I could go ahead and throw down the starport right here. Now, I'll talk about more when you decide to do that, so I'm going to come back to this, but just going to throw that out there so you guys kind of, right here, I could throw the starport and then the tech lab, and then get my tank. But if you want to be safe, tech lab on the factory, you know, then your starport, make sure you get your tank out. You don't want to delay your tank no more than you have to. That tank is your key to holding off any kind of all-in that it can kind of throw at you. Orbital, I get the tech lab here.
SCV ready.
Tech lab's going to finish. We got the starport.
Add-on
I need to keep, there we go. Okay, so prioritize. So, all right, so here, what I really should have done, just to throw this out here, I should have canceled this Marine, and I might do it, and then get this tank. So I got a bunker. This extra Marine isn't going to do anything special. Actually, this tank is a bigger deal. So, you know, once you fill up this bunker, you know, they do come out in 2, so I should be technically on 4, but, or 6. But if you're on 4 and your tech lab finishes, like I said, I needed to cancel this Marine. I need to get this tank out, and I might do that. But get the tank out as quick as you can. There, but you see right there, I canceled it. Cancel it, get your tank out. It's priority. It's going to be the thing that solidifies you from the all-ins and getting a siege, especially if there's roaches. A lot of people hate the dreadful roach push that's early on, and they come in with like 8 of them. And we all know Marines just don't do well. Hellions don't do well. You have to control them pretty well and take them down and pull SCVs. But with this, you really don't. If he comes in right before the tank comes out, you know, you can pull and try to repair this bunker, but usually this tank's going to get out before he can get any kind of roaches across the map and to you. And even if he does, let's say you do see roaches that are attacking this, and if you know it's going to fall, just pull these back here. You know, if you want to, you can even bring your Marines up if you can get a good distance on the roaches, lift this, let the tank get out, and then he's going to hopefully stand away, and then you can siege right here. And usually you can push with the Marines, SCVs, and tank if you need to, and you should win that with pretty much ease unless you mess up your tank macro. Your tank macro should be the only thing that you focus on.
Command center upgrade complete.
All right, so from here, notice I'm focusing on the tank. We get Marines. Now we got to add a little bit of something to this build, right? We don't want to sit back too much. So we don't really want to sit back too much with this build. And this is where the gas gets important too. Notice we get in the tank. What we want to do, we want to try to get a Liberator as well. Here. So we're close to 150 mineral, or gas, sorry. And we should be getting the Liberator out. There it goes. So I'm starting my Liberator. First tank's going to be out. Now this is going to delay my second tank. So there's two ways around this. Maybe you know he's going roaches and you want to get that second tank out quicker. That's more defensive, and that's fine. But what you usually want to do is most Zergs are going to be kind of passive. One tank's usually going to be enough. It does so well, especially with SCVs, that you're going to be able to hold anything. And if he does push you and he's kind of all in, and this Liberator is going to be the nail in this coffin because you're going to be able to kill his workers. So he will not be able to keep throwing stuff at you. At some point, he's got to do something at home. Or he lets everything die and he's going to go to one attack win. And if that's the case, well, you can just quickly go into one base and hold. Don't get too greedy and try to hold the bottom if you have to.
SCV ready. Ready to roll out.
This first tank, getting it sieged as quickly as you can. Getting the second tank out as soon as I get the gas is very, very important. Now, there's other builds that you can do to where you're not getting this Liberator and you can get the second tank right now. But in this case, this is what I like. I think this is what you should kind of get used to a little bit. And what you can do, you can build a Hellion off of this if you choose to. And what you'll do with the Hellion, you can scout the third. Remember how I was talking about the scouting? Scouting be a bummer. Well, you could technically get a Hellion at this time frame and send it straight across here and be able to scout what's going on. And I might do that. I can't remember if I do or don't. Doesn't look like I do, though. So here I actually have enough downtime. I probably could have made a Hellion. Like after this, make a Hellion, send it directly to see if he's got a third base, because he should have laid the third back down by now. And if there ain't a third base with the Hellion, then you know to not move out at all. You're in good hands, and you just hold the Hellion over here, tuck it back here to see if he ever takes this third. You know, don't forget about this. Some of the lower leagues, and even some of the diamond leagues, will take this third instead to kind of throw people off. But this is the normal third on this map, but this is a possibility as well. Once I start those, let's go back here. So what I like to do in this build is whenever I start my Liberator, you're going to see me start to throw down 2 supply depots. And this is to keep me, if you don't do this, you're going to be capped. There's going to be a hard cap, I think, on the second depot. This one, you're going to cap some right before it's done, and then you're going to really cap before this one gets done. Like pretty quickly. So what you're going to see me do is I got one, so next 100 I'm going to throw down another one. And I can't build anything anyways. I mean, I could do the Hellion and end this, but I can still do the Hellion. So there's enough minerals to get the Hellion. And then just focus on the Marines and trying to get the tank here. You notice I make this tank. Here's that, remember that small cap? It's a lot smaller here. I'd be capped again just starting this one. So just throw them 2 down and then go to making 1 of each until you add the additional from there. Alright, so it's pretty much how the build rolls out from here. So what you're going to do, you're going to keep making Marines, you're going to keep making tank. You want to kind of prioritize the tank. What we're going to do, we're going to take this Liberator, guys, and we're going to shift click it. What you don't want to do, guys, is don't put your tank right here right beside the bunkers. Because what happens is he can dive in here, do corrosive files on the tank, kill it, or he can just come up with the roaches, target fire it, and you lost a tank, even with the bunker there. So back it up a little bit, get used to this range, back it up some, a little bit behind the bunker, but not so far that you can't hit them. Roaches will not be able to hit out here. You can look at this circle, and there's no way roaches are going to be able to hit from out here. So I've got this completely covered to where anything's firing, I'm going to be able to hit it right up through here. No problem. Like I said, once them 2 finishes, we're just going to use the SCV and we're just going to be building one at a time. I think I get a supply cap at some point in this replay. So the Liberator's almost out.
SCV ready.
We're going to talk about that.
Reporting
Alright,
for
so the
action.
Liberator's out. Instantly, I'm going to go with the reactor. And what we're doing, we're setting up for the 2 barracks. So what I'm going to do, you're going to see me throw down 2 barracks here shortly as well once I get 300 minerals. Now, what I want to talk about is, let's look at this Liberator. Now, what I do is shift click. If you don't know what shift click is, basically what I'm doing, I'm holding shift and I'm right clicking around the outside of the map. And then I right click here, and then I'm still holding shift and I press the Liberator Siege and then put it like right here. So it should be like right here, and it sieges this. You can do that without ever really paying attention to it. And that doesn't mean completely ignore it. You want to get to the point that you pay attention to it. And if there is a spore, you want to be able to unsiege, come back and find a different angle. But it does keep you from having to babysit it.
SCV ready.
So there's the reactor. Waiting for the 300 minerals. Remember, we keep making SCVs nonstop. 2 more barracks going to go down. So I build them beside here because what it is I'm going to make 1 more tank, and then we're going to lift both of these. And we're going to swap our barracks on there, guys. Because we're going to start really ramping up Marines. Now, 3 tanks is good against Zerg. So we really, with this timing, there's an early timing with the 3 tanks. So we're going to look at that. I'm going to talk about it. It's the first real timing with this build. But we're going to push for the 3 tanks. And then we're going to lift this, and we're going to get this barracks over on this tech lab because we want to get stim pack as quick as we can for a good timing. Because what you don't want a Zerg to do, you don't want them to take this 30. You don't want them to be taking a 4th at this time, or a 4th too early. And this punishes this kind of punishes them a little bit for it.
SCV ready.
If they're too greedy, this timing is really good. And not only that, if they're not greedy enough, this timing can punish them just as well. At some point, in some aspect.
Ready.
There we go. Second siege, always like it on the high ground. Notice it ain't even 5 minutes. And we got 2 nicely placed siege tanks. We got a decent amount of Marines. Something just can't run up there. It's still in range where anything's attacking here. The bunker can fire at it as well. We're building our supply depots at this point, trying to make a wall here. So what's going to happen is when we push out, we got a wall. It'll be easier for us to defend. And there goes our 3rd tank. Now, so what the goal is we're going to put down both of these. I should be putting down 2 engineering bays here shortly as well. And I'm probably going to put them back here, or you can put them up here. Now, what I will do, I will tell you this, because I see a lot of people do it. You don't want to put your engineering bays like over here, over in this area, or some people use it to get a quicker wall. I think that is fine, but just know what can happen. Sometimes they'll place it over here. I don't like that. Like, I mostly like them like maybe over here. Like back here somewhere maybe, or over here. And the reason why is I like them tucked away from areas that the Zerg or Terran or anybody can get in early, because the hotspot's right here, right? This is a hotspot for getting drops or things coming in. This is a hotspot for an attack. These are not very powerful hotspots. This is a hotspot for dropping the natural. This is not as much. This is not a hotspot. They're not going to fly. They're going to come in from this angle. So what I do, I look at maps and I try to tuck them into areas that ain't easy for them to die, because the worst thing that can happen is you get an upgrade and it's about to finish and they drop and they kill it. And even if you clean up their army, you're like, oh man, I don't got the upgrades. That's a huge blow to me. And you pretty much got an attack, especially if they're the ones, they're getting upgrades and they're just getting a big jump of elite on you because of that. So if you see that as a Terran player as well, go for it. Double evolution chamber. If you come over here and you see them placed over there, to me, them are hot target, like hot targets for me. I mean, you come in here and get the drones and then back up and then go for them instead of chasing the drones once they run away, but it's a hot target. Taking a Zerg out and you can get to 2-2 and he doesn't have 1-1 at all, it's pretty much an auto win in most cases.
SCV ready.
All right, so there is the double engineering base right here, as you can see. And then next, what should happen is I take these 2 gases. So basically at one point, your Liberator is going to come out, you start your reactor. Next 300 minerals, you're going to make your double barracks. Remember, you're still making SCVs non-stop at this point. And then the next, basically like 275 to 250, you're going to make double engineering bays. And then when you hit about 150 gas, you're going to take both of these. So you'll take both of these gases.
Gangway coming through.
Add-on complete.
So there's that gas. And I'm going to take this one. Another supply depot here once I get 100. Notice here's that liberator. Remember the shift clicking I was talking about kind of way here. So if there's drones here, which remember this is very easy AI, we're just practicing the build. We're going to be firing at this. And this is what I like about the harass. This one liberator can straight up win you the game. So it gives you that potential of harass to make the Zerg do something, or he gets uncomfortable. At the lower ranks, it doesn't take much to get somebody uncomfortable. You can see just over here, and man, he's losing his queen. Next thing you know, he lost 8 to 15 drones, and there's nothing even over here, and he's down to 1 base. And you're sitting at this position. You're going up to 2 more racks. You know, you're fixing to, get really rolling, and you just completely hindered him to where he can't make nothing. And he's got to figure out how to deal with the liberator. So either he's going to wait for a queen, or he's going to have to bring his queen from the main down here to take care of it. And even then, he's got to babysit and watch it. And guess what that means? That means missed inject. It means lower drone count. It's lower unit count. So this little liberator might not seem like much. And even if you lose it, you know, it's a bummer, especially if it don't get anything. Usually if there's like a spore here and you still siege, you're going to get about 3 workers, which is still fine, especially early on. But you got to have, I feel like you got to have that harass in your play to at least get something going. And then what you want to do, you want to get better and better at the build, and then you kind of want to get used to looking at this multitasking. You know, hotkey this liberator, you're going to watch it. The spore, you know, is there. You're going to move it. If one's building, you're going to, when it almost finishes, you're going to move it, liberator, and you might come over here and siege again. And it moves to spore or whatever, and you might undo it after a few more kills and siege again. Or you might just go ahead and come up here and siege it again. What this liberator also does, it gives you info. Whatever he has to clean it up with. If you see like 4 queens, well, he's queen heavy, right? There's most likely no crazy all in or something like that probably coming. A lot of times they'll F2, and even the Zerglings all come over here, and you're going to know, oh, he's got a lot of lings, or he don't got many lings. You're also going to be able to see how many drones he had before you sieged if you take a glance. You're going to get this information, kind of know what he's doing, and also could use it to scout. He might have a build in here. He might have both of these gases. That's a tell sign sometimes. If you go up here and you end up sieging, you might be able to get some reads on the buildings as well. So use that liberator as a scout as well.
SCV ready.
All right, so here goes the movement. Notice I'm going ahead and moving to starport. We're going to get a reactor because we do want to get medevacs. We're not getting medevacs until we go up to 3 racks. The key is you don't get medevacs until you go up to 3 racks.
SCV ready.
All right, and then we're going to move to the factory. And we're going to get a tech lab with it because we want to continue making tanks. There we go. Now we're going to move the 2 barracks over to the add-ons. The 2 gases is finished as well. And we started 1-1. We want to start this as soon as the engineering bays finish. And here goes the lifting and movement. And then we're going to start stim pack as soon as possible as well. Stim pack, there we go. And then we're going to make Marines non-stop. And we're going to get up this time and push once the 2 medevacs come out to where we want to cross the map with our first 3 tanks.
Add-on complete.
Maybe 4, actually, if we can squeeze in another one here. Now, what you do need to prioritize here, after this, like, even if you got to cut a little bit of Marines, we want to prioritize the two medevacs, because we can't really push out until these 2 medevacs. So we really want to prioritize getting that stim pack when we do that building switch, starting it first, and then you want to make the 2 medevacs once that reactor finishes, and then Marines is 3rd in that priority list. I honestly don't think a 4th tank is better than the extra Marines. You can cut and experiment if you want the 4th tank instead, but at this point you notice I'm going to have to cut, and I need 200 here, and there we go. Oh, actually I shouldn't have done this. So what I should have done is probably cancel these, make the 2 medevacs, and start them back, so I can get this out as quick as I can. So notice it balances out really well. Getting a lot of Marines. 2 medevacs are on the way. The goal is with this build, which I'm slightly late here. Notice now I'm getting 2 more racks as well. But the goal with this build is that you want to be moving out and go over, get to his side at about 7 minutes, or over to his 4th base at around 7 minutes with this build.
Who wants some?
And I did delay. Actually, it's not too bad. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was. So about 6:30 is when I want to be moving out roughly. I do squeeze in the fourth tank a little bit. You can come down here to the third first if you want to make sure there isn't nothing sitting here to get this third down. If you save the Liberator, you can use it here. You can push while harassing, or you can use this Liberator with the push. Sometimes that Liberator with the push creates a lot of problems for Zerg. But why I like to split it is when you're pushing, a lot of times Zerg's going to get every unit that he's got for this push. And you can take this Liberator and really get a good siege spot. And he's going to be focused here that he doesn't want to move it. So at the same time that you're pushing, if you can do it nearly at the same time or as quick as possible, maybe you just shift click it over here while you're over here. Usually if you start attacking and then you get this siege stuff over here, he's not going to pay this any attention. He's not going to take the attention to move the spore, move it over here while he's there. His big thing is, man, I've got to beat this or I'm going to die. And that's where the Liberator becomes really strong because it's a multi-pronged attack. Because if that happens, next thing you know, you can lose 10 drones over here, and even though your attack failed, you're in a great position. If you use it to attack with you, a lot of times it can pose a problem because, well, he's got to get queens there, and if you got bio with it, his queens just can't run in and go snipe the Liberator. So it creates a little bit of can create an awkward situation for him because he wants the queens with him, but at the same time, if he pushes the queens, you can kill him with the bio, and even the tanks can reach him. If he throws his units at it, the Liberator's going to get free range because nothing can shoot at it but queen. So it creates quite an interesting predicament. Of course, it's easier to use it all and just attack, APM-wise, but at some point, you can practice trying to use this on a different hotkey and multi-prong and siege it while you're attacking at the same time.
Armed and ready.
Because it's like the equivalent of dropping in the main while pushing at the same time. Except the Liberator, I feel like, doesn't take as much attention. And it's still trade. Even if something's there, unless like 4 queens are there or 3, they're not going to be able to kill it before it can siege. So it still is going to get a little bit of damage. Where a tank or marine drops, sometimes that isn't the case. You do usually have to babysit it. It has higher potential, but it takes a lot of babysitting. So we're going to push. Remember, we're a little bit slow because we went down this way instead of, coming out this way and like here. This is normally the fourth that Zerg's going to take. Now, remember, we were adding 2 more racks. We're going to get double reactors. So you're going to have 1 tech lab and then 4 reactors. And we're going on 5 racks. So in this build, scroll back a little bit and talk about it. So we focused a little too much on the timing here. So in this build, what we're going to do is got those going. I move those 2, we get those, we start the medevacs, and once we start the medevacs, and I think the tank will get we get the 2.
Complete.
Nope.
Go, go, go!
Should have started these first. So what I should have done is started the medevacs and dropped these 2 down. That's where my minerals went. And then what you're going to do is once you get to this point and you're getting ready to move out, I'd say once the medevacs comes out, we need to start dropping an armory because we're going to be halfway in upgrades.
Who wants some?
I mean, it wouldn't even be a bad idea if we lined it up with the 2 barracks being finished. But I'm going to say when the 2 medevacs come out is the prime time. So what you want to do is this build is a 2-punch kind of build against a very standard Zerg. There's the medevacs. Notice I'm getting ready to throw the armory down. These barracks finished, so you could go by that. You can go when the 2 medevacs come out or the barracks. Either one of these should trigger it. There it goes. Double reactor on this. We want to get up. You want to get up to 2-2 as quick as you can. Like I said, this is a 2. We're going to focus on 2 timings in the push mainly. From there, and after that is kind of you just going to keep attacking and kind of hope to win the game, maybe off a 3-3 or something. But 2 push. So the first timing that we're going to do here, that 7 minutes timing, this is to really just put pressure and not allow the Zerg to keep droning. You'll get a Zerg who just wants to drone. And this will punish them for it. Then you get the Zergs who just make units. And this push right here, if you execute the build well, and they're on 2 base and they make nothing but units, you're going to be surprised, but this is actually going to trade even if not straight up win the game against it if they're on 2 bases. The goal is they really need to be on 3 bases. So if a Zerg isn't on 3 hatch, by the time you get this and he has not attacked you, he's going to be in some trouble, I feel like. So if he's on 2 base, I think he's in trouble and he's made nothing but units. He's in trouble. The only way, like the way he beats this is he's got to have a 3rd hatchery. And he can't be, he's got to have drones, but he can't have too many drones. Basically, if he plays perfect, he's going to have about 60 drones when you push out here, and we're going to have about 50. I could have did a little bit better, but about it should be at like 50 SCVs or more. Now, he won't be quite at 66 drones, but he's getting there like 60 something drones right now. And what he's going to do, he should be taking this 4th base around 630 or so, technically. But if he's making drones, let's say he takes this base and he's making drones, this push is going to do a lot of damage. It's going to kill his 4th. It's going to kill all of his units, and it might even kill his 3rd base. And that gives you an advantage. If you push and you kill his 4th, you basically have an advantage at this point. If he has his 4th and he defends, then I'd say maybe it's slightly in his advantage. It's not much, but I know if you kill it at this time and he's drawn up, it's that you become the one that starts looking pretty good for you. Now, if he's on a 5th base, let's say he's on a 5th base and you kill the 5th base and he's on the 4th, he's still got his 4th in a situation like this, he's still in a really good shape. If you can't kill his 5th base, then I feel like you did something wrong, or he's just much better than you, and he is way ahead at that point. But normal timing is there would be a 4th. It would be pretty much finished at this timing at the decent levels. In most cases, probably in the lower ranks below diamond, you're going to have a 3rd base by this time, you would think, or should. Question is how many times they get capped and so on from there. If he doesn't, like I said, this push is good. So usually in most cases, this push is going to be decent no matter what. He has to know the exact response, what to do to deal with it. Now, does that mean that he can not 2 base and you still lose everything? Yeah, but if you execute it properly, you'll beat a 2 base if he hasn't hit you, because he should technically have hit you, or he doesn't, or he's really afraid and doesn't know how to play Zerg very well, or as good as you are if you're hitting this time and well. If he's on 3 base, then he's got the ability to, but still it's pretty strong, especially in the lower leagues. So I feel like this timing's one of those you do it anyways. You kind of learn from it and you try to get really good at it. I would just do it even blindly. You have no clue if he has this or has this. I would still always come this way or scan as you're moving out. You maybe scan as you're starting to move out to make sure he's got the 3rd. See how many drones are on it from there. But this timing is usually always one of those. I recommend probably doing it till you really figure out when it works and what it doesn't for you. And then not only that, when you get better, revisit that, see if that still applies. Because, like I said, most of your games, you're going to be able to do this all the way up to diamond. And if you do it right, it's pretty much should almost win. This first push is going to do so much damage if he hasn't done anything to slow you down or attack you.
Complete.
So it's going to be something like that. Like I said, normally we're going to be looking for the 4th. 4th ain't there. We're going to try to siege up on this 3rd and take it out. If he doesn't have a 3rd, like I said, if you play it right, you can still push him and win, but you can go back and say, he doesn't got a 3rd base, I've got a 3rd base, and you just back up and go for a huge 2-2 timing, which is also pretty much not a win.
Ready for dust off.
That would be kind of your siege timing there. As you notice, I'm kind of setting up, just kind of showing how it would look a little bit.
Base.
Now, what's ways that Zerg could crush this even off 2 base banglings? I mean, obviously banglings come in here and hit this, but if you have roaches, this is going to trade pretty dang well against it even on 2 base. You got the Liberator, which you cannot really clean up. You have it with your army. Banglings is the only thing that could trade good, banglings and lings. So what you do is if they're banglings, you're going to run the Marines back here behind the tanks. Ideally, if you get a position like this, you want the Marines to back up some here and some like back this way. and then keep them away from the banglings and let the tanks get as much firepower off on them as they can. If it's only lings, you're going to just stand right here probably even with the tanks. If it's roaches, you're going to be ahead of the tanks because they don't come up and hug you, so the splash won't hit you. But lings, you do not want to be just sitting here with lings surrounding you. Your tank fire will also hurt you. So what you usually want to do is you kind of want to come up in here with the in with the tanks so they don't fire as much at you.
Is under attack.
Boy. SCV ready.
All right, so from here, what do we do? Like I said, we're going straight into 2-2. We got the armory. We're going to go into 2-2, and then you can get the +1 for your tanks here. And ideally here, we're just going to try to saturate up this third. So we're going to speed it up. You only take one more gas. I would play this build off of 5 gases. And ultimately, if you keep macroing, you keep making your supply depots like you should. So basically, when you have 3 racks and a starport and the factory and you're producing, you're going to need to be building 2 depots at a time. Now, when you get to 5 barracks with 1 factory and a starport, you're going to be, I'm just going to say go ahead and build 3 at a time. Technically, I think it's like 2.5 if you want to be like super efficient, but I would go ahead and start building 3 depots at a time once you go up into the 5 racks. And then what you're going to do is eventually you have a choice. We're getting to that choice point right about here. And it's usually after you saturate this third. And you have the choice of going ahead and just getting a second factory with a tech lab and go double tank here. Or, you know, earlier double tanks or more tanks, which requires less micro. I'm going to be honest, if there's banglings, that might be easier for you than making, you know, more barracks. But the goal is we're going to make more barracks and add in tech labs, or at least 3, a total of at least 3 tech labs. If you're not good at splitting, you need a total of 4 tech labs. I feel like you just want to start making marauders. We're going to talk about the engagement part a little bit. If you can't split or so on from there, kind of what you need to do. Notice these are all tech labs, and I'm building marines, but they should now start becoming marauders because we got the 3rd gas. So here's that next big timing. So 2-2 is about finished. We should be pretty much about maxed out. And what you want to do is when this 2-2 is about finished or is finished, this is where you really want to start going across the map and getting things done. Even the +1 to tank is a little bit delayed. It should be finished before or at the same time. But this 2-2 push is really the push that it's going to really tell you where the game stands. This is the push that is either going to win you the game. I think this straight up puts you in a great spot and win most of your games off of the 2-2. If the first push don't win it, this one's usually going to do a lot of damage here. 2-2 is really good. The more tanks you have with this 2-2, the less you have to micro against the banglings because it's just going to splash and kill a lot of them, especially when you get the +1. But on top of that, the 2-2, they kill lings and banglings so much quicker that it's insane. Literally, it makes it a lot easier. And so what you do is you will take your 2-2 and you're pretty much going to push. Now remember, so we're about to roll it back and talk a little bit more, but so we're going to add these tech labs, and the goal is here is you start really you're ramping up your marauder production if this fails. And what's going to happen is usually the marauder production makes it to where you don't have to micro as much. You got a decent amount of tanks here. There's a lot of marines though, so if you're not very good at splitting, he could clean it up if he's played pretty good. Cleaned up your first attack pretty well without putting too many drones from there. And what that marauder is, the marauder, usually during this battle, you want to take it as slow as you can if you have to, and then you will use your marauders to basically give you more of a cushion in the next attack, so you'll have a thicker that doesn't require as much splitting. And it's a little bit harder even for the banglings to get into you. They kind of provide a little bit more meat shields. So you should have that. If you take your time with this push and don't just run in here and get demolished, like you start sieging here, or if he's over here, you start like sieging some here, sieging here, taking a few marines, and you kind of split your marines, pre-split some, and take it slow, but take out the bases. and don't like completely just lose all your units like that. And you maybe you bleed in a few here or there, you can start really getting up your Marauder count from here. And while I do this push, usually I do take a fourth. Good rule of thumb. I always have people ask this. They say, when's a good time to take your fourth as Terran? When they see these builds. And a lot of times I tell people when you start losing minerals at your main, it's a good time to start considering, hey, I need a fourth base. You won't build any more SCVs. Usually you'll stay, I'd say, around like 66, no more than 70 with a build like this. And you're not masters, I would stay around that count. Focus on just keep making, troll and basically macroing really well. There, notice I do get my second factory. So what you can do, going back to that, so remember how I added 3 racks? So what you can do, if you do the factory instead like this, you will add these 3 during this time frame. And vice versa, if you're not adding the factory, you would do, so all right, you do the barracks and then you add the second factory. Or you add the second factory and then you do the barracks after the second factory is done. So whichever the two, they both 2 different techniques. From there, like I said, I feel like tanks are pretty good. It's that one's your call. I find most people that are not very good at splitting, or feels like they have a lot of trouble against banglings. I feel like the second factory earlier is a little bit nicer versus this. But if you're pretty good at splitting and you want the mobility and you want to be able to keep attacking and even dropping possibly, or this is the better style for that, I feel like, because you're going to have the Marines, you're going to have the extras that you can kind of burn, and not only that, you can really like push really hard.
Additional supply depot.
Like for example, if you get here and the battle's really back and forth, getting these 3 racks earlier is probably going to be a bigger impact getting this 1 extra factory up there for that. Now, what I will say is if he's on Roach Ravager, I highly suggest you get the factory over these 3 racks first, especially like Roach Ravager or Hydralisk. I feel like the tank count is very, very important, and the racks aren't as important. When you're playing against banglings, it's your choice. Playing against roaches, I always feel like it's definitely like my way to play is second factory. I really push out that second factory and focus on that against like range type units from Zerg. Would be Roach, Ravager, Hydralisk kind of setup. So that's gonna push, of course, gonna crush them, and then we're gonna, like I said, you're gonna start pushing out Marauders here. Even though I've got Marines, you would actually focus on the Marauders. You'll have the gas. When you start getting the second factory, I think you do take the 6th gas if you get the tech labs on here. So we got a total of 4 tech labs. Now, what I like about the 4 tech labs and 4 reactors is if he goes into Ultralisk, already got the tech labs for the Marauder. So you're going to be in good shape. So that transitions there. The only transition that really can get quirky is if it's not quite as common as the Ultralisk, is the Brood Lords. The Brood Lords is one you got to scan for, and then you maybe add your second starport instead. Or you can cut making Marauders, and you'll get a second starport, and you would get like Thors, Vikings, and maybe Marines, but keep Marauders as you need them for the gas, and kind of go into that composition deal with the Broodlords. Broodlords are good, but once you clean them up, actually super powerful, I think, afterward. So that's why I feel like you still want the Marines. The Marauders still wouldn't hurt, but usually Broodlords are so expensive, you won't see many banglings, especially when he's first morphing them at that point. So this is kind of how we're going to push here with the build on a 2-2, and then instantly definitely focus on 3-3. Now, if you have to take a pick, you always pick your weapons on the infantry over your armor. So if you get in this weird position, you don't have enough, and you want to go ahead and start your weapons. The weapons is a bigger deal on infantry, for sure. And that's just, completely walkover from here. So let's talk about some of the points in this build, or things that you can change and do better. So what you could do, the standard build would be make a Reaper. Say you get used to this build, and this build is fine for it with the gas. What you could do, you can make a Reaper here instead of the Marine, and then you'll make 1 Marine and then a factory, and then you get your reactor. And then you get the tech lab on your factory. Remember the second gas will still come after that factory. one little deviation gives you the Reaper. You get used to scouting with it and gain control and figure out how many flings he's making, so on from there with the Reaper. So that's a little bit of a deviation. You want to get that
Command
Reaper.
center
A lot of
upgrade.
times with this build, you will see me get a Reaper because I feel like I rather know what they're doing, and I like to know when they take their third. The standard here would be I just swap this factory onto the reactor, but this build isn't based on that. But I'm just showing you that this build really mimics up to the higher levels as well, so it's not that big of a deviation from this very safe, low APM tank, so on from there.
Add-on.
SCV ready.
Sorry, let's say your SCV. Actually, let's talk about here. So, let's say that you scouted the Zerg. It looks very safe. Maybe you know the player and you're feeling very comfortable, or maybe you want to experiment and see what the difference is. So, what you could do here, instead of me dropping Tech Lab, I could build a starport instantly here. So, if I wanted to get the starport earlier and be like less stronger against the all-in, then I can get a starport right here. Now, if they're one basing you, I do not recommend getting the starport. Definitely Tech Lab and get out that. I would get out that tank as quick as you can from here. I don't think the starport is going to be a good answer because you got to wait for it to finish and then you got to build something in it, or you can just get a Tech Lab and then build a tank, and it holds off a lot of stuff because of its range and its splash. But if you're feeling confident, it doesn't feel like an all-in, then what I recommend is throwing down a starport right here. Go ahead and throw down a starport. You can make your Hellion now instead, or Tech Lab then Hellion because you might not have the gas, but whichever you want to do. From there, also another deviation
Add-on complete.
here we're going to talk about. And I'm going to give you them all. I just did the most standard safe
Command center.
build. So what I could do here is a little bit different. I could go for a Viking right here, right? I could go for a Viking and clear out Overlord, which is fine. Usually you like to get 2 Overlords. Let's say you have trouble in their Nidison, or you know the player Nidisus. So what you would usually want to do, you'd probably want to get a Viking right here. If you kill the Overlords, if you give him an ability where he cannot Nidus inside of your bases easily. So you can get the Viking. The first Overlord you'd want to kill is definitely this one that might be over here. A lot of players will stash it up in there somewhere. Get rid of it, and then you'll come over here and get rid of the next popular zone. And then after that, I just shift click the Viking everywhere. So you could make a Viking. You can go Viking and then a Liberator. You could just make a Viking and still get your 2 racks. I think with the Viking, you don't have any delay, so you don't have to worry about the Liberator. You got the slight delay with the Liberator. That's kind of a little bit of a, that's fine. If you decide to go that route, it's worth kind of messing with and experimenting. But remember, it doesn't really give you the harass part of it, but it does take out and can supply cap to Zerg, and that is some minerals out there, and it keeps you safe against the possible Nidus. So if you're scared of Nidus or you lost a few games of Nidus, try throwing in a Viking and then going to Liberator and see how you like that, or just go to the Viking and then go straight up into your rack. And it's just going to be a super safe, try to macro and get a good timing on your opponent. So you have that that as well. Now the other thing you can do, of course, is the medevac, guys. We know we can afford the medevac. Now, what would you do with a medevac? There really ain't a lot that you can really do with a medevac. You'll have a decent amount of Marines where you could pick them up and go. With the Marines, that's up to you, but then you're going to be left with just a tank from there. So I'm not sure if that's something you want to experiment with and play with, but it leaves you defenseless, but it does give you the ability to get over there, and it does hit. It can really throw the Zerg off sometime as well. But normally I don't like that. If I do that build, most of the time what I do is I get a reactor. I make 1 Marine, and then well, actually I don't even make a Marine. I reactor instantly. Instead of making 1 Marine, I reactor, and a factory. I get the of course the second, and then I make a reactor on that and swap it because I don't get any factory units. And what I do is I go with early Marines, and then I think usually like a Widow Mine or something along with it, and then I do a drop. on there, so it's a totally different build order. So I feel like Medevac really isn't one of them plays you wanted it, but you can play with it. I think Viking or Liberator is definitely the way you want to go. From there, the other thing you can do, you can get out a tank, make the Viking. When it finishes, you can swap these two, and then put it on the Tech Lab, and then go for Banshees or Cloak Banshees if you choose after your one tank. That's up to you. You do have that choice. So there is some things you can play around with right here, transitional wise.
SCV ready. Gangway. SCV ready. Ready to roll out.
And then the other thing we're going to talk about, deviation. And I'm going to keep it simple. These are just things that you can use, you can play with, however you want to do.
Go, go, go.
Add-on.
Is shortly after here,
SCV ready.
we got to do engineering base.
SCV ready.
Add-on complete.
So instead of making the two barracks that are coming up next, I will still make my medevacs on from there. So instead of making these two barracks, you will wait a little bit longer because you're going to take 400 minerals and you're going to make a command center instead. It doesn't really affect this first time at all, and it gets you to quicker command center. And then what you'll do, you'll go up into your 4th and 5th racks after you start the command center. So you'll start the command center, go up to your 4th and 5th rack. Still, what does that give you? That gives you the ability to saturate it quicker, and not only that, you get your 3 barracks or your 2nd factory quicker. So you get that ability. So basically, it sets you up for that heavier hit on 2-2, or to be definitely maxed by 2-2 with no problems, and maybe even your 2-2 slightly earlier. But your defenses, when you get to 30 floated over, could be a little bit less. So you see, you're sacrificing a little bit of units at one time to get a greater amount at a later time, or set yourself up in a better position at a later time from there. So this is a big, big transition that's pretty much known by all. So from here, you either get a command center, or you can go ahead and throw down your 4th and 5th rack. Whichever order you do it in, you can flip it. So you would throw these two, and then eventually we get your 3rd, or vice versa. You get your 3rd, and then you'll throw these 2 racks down definitely before the 3rd finishes. But whatever you do not delay this first push. Whatever you do, make sure you have it, the timing, and the threat there. And you would still hit with that. No matter how you flip those, the timing's still there regardless. Like I said, there's no effect on this timing here. About the only difference you'll notice is if you, like I said, if you get into this back and forth battle here, and maybe you take this out and you're engaging on the 3rd and it's back and forth, getting the 2 racks earlier would have allowed you to break this, where if you do the command center first and those 2, you might not break. But you shouldn't hold that against yourself, but that is like a variable and possibility. But technically, you know, when you get to 2-2, you should still be able to do pretty good if you got that far. It's just a different type of game style and play. So notice I get these 2 barracks. Notice I am putting my 3rd down. Like I said, you flip that. However you want to do it, you can build it up here. Remember to get the armory here for the 2-2. For the next transition point here. So what it does is, usually if you get this first, what can happen is a lot of times you can get the 3 barracks down before you even start 2-2. When you take this 3rd earlier, there's usually a lot of times you can delay your 2-2, get the 3 barracks down, then after they start building, you start your 2-2, and then you're on your 8 barracks or so on from there, and then you'll get your 2nd factory, or vice versa. You get those, throw down your 2nd factory, start 2-2, and then throw down the 3 racks when 2-2 finishes. So like I said here, I could not make those if I went command center first and do either the factory or the 3 racks, and then start it whichever I choose, and then start the 2-2, and then add the other. But however from there.
Ready for dust off.
Alright, so the other, what was it? The other deviation, of course, was what I was just talking about.
Command center upgrade. Research.
Was here. I can do the factory instead of these 3 here. You know, the factory come in later. I can swap this around. I could do the factory earlier and then add these 3 later on. Another deviation here is I can only get, I recommend at least having, you'll hear some people say 2 tech lab. I recommend that no less than 3 with this build. I feel like 2's still pushing it pretty tough, even against Ultralisk. I feel like 3 Tech Labs does pretty good against it. 4 is just being very prepared against it. I feel like a lot easier to transition to deal with them. From there, the other thing is, even though we were talking about the second factory, it doesn't matter when you do it. But what a good thing is at this point, there's a few things you can do. We have this push. If I wanted to go with this bigger one, but also even when you make remember when we made the 3 tanks? I should go back, but instead of making this tech lab, I can make a reactor. And what I would do is I would go into Widow Mines instead. And this second factory would be a tech lab, and I would get the Adrenaline Claws if I continue to go Widow Mine off the tech lab. So we would have, 3 Widow Mines coming out at a time from these factories. So that's another transitional point. So this one would be a reactor. So we'd get the 2-2. We just wouldn't have 2 Widow Mines coming out each time. We wouldn't have the Adrenaline Claws. But once we get this tech lab, then we'd have the Adrenaline Claws and be able to get down quicker, get them burrowed even quicker from there.
Upgrade add-on.
Another deviation that well, actually not too much, but what you could do, you could delay these add-ons and get this base, I think, a little bit earlier. You could delay these 3 and get this base technically earlier, but I feel like it's not as good or as powerful. And I feel like with Zerg, you need to keep ramping up and keep some kind of power in hitting them. Like I said, this 2-2 timing is the way to go. Alright, so let's go back and let's talk about the engagement. I'll be done with this video, so I want to go back to that first timing right over here.
Ready for dust off.
This better be good.
Here we go. Just going to get across to where I siege, and we're going to kind of talk about this a little bit.
Ready for dust off.
And I'm not worried about like as much the positioning. These should be spread out a little bit more. These tanks, you don't want them like side by side here. Should maybe have one here, maybe like one here, and then maybe 2 like back here. And ideally, what you want to do in a great world, you want to start out in front with the Marines, and then when he comes at you, you kind of want to bring these back behind the tank. There. So what you also could do is be at the tanks, but once the banglings get to you, you need to back up behind the tanks. What you want to happen is you want the banglings to hit the tanks if possible. And what's going to happen, most of your players, they're not going to control the banglings separate. So if all the lings and banglings are coming at your Marines, what you need to do is there's a few things you can do. You can do what they call a pre-split, which means I have these, maybe I take 5 Marines, have them over here, take a few, have them over here, take a few, and then I have some down here, and then a little bit like right up here. And then I don't have to worry as much. I just grab them all and stem. The other one is you keep them grouped up, and they're going to come at you, and if they're F2 and they might select your Marines, but all the links are going to follow, and guess what? You keep backing up. These tanks are going to get so many shots till you get it like back here on the banglings and the lings. He's going to lose so many if he doesn't go for the tanks with the lings. Ideally for Zerg, you want the lings on the tanks, the banglings chasing the Marine, and that forces the Marines to split from there. But if you can't split, pre-splitting is good against somebody like that, but a lot of times in the lower ranks, you're going to find out they don't do that. And most of the time, once the engagement starts, as long as you get behind the tanks, you're going to usually trade pretty good because the tanks are going to get several volleys off as well. The tanks are your meat shield, so get behind, especially if you don't know how to split. Now, if you really want to improve your TvZ, it helps to learn how to split on the fly, like instantly, but pre-splitting is pretty dang good as well. So, like, because you can look away a little bit more. So pre-splitting's nice where you're keeping a few, like, small clump here, small clump here, small clump here, like a small clump there, and a small clump over here, or something like that. And what you'll do, you'll just grab them whenever his army comes, or you can hit F2 and hit them, and they'll just start shooting, but they're pre-split from there. Now, if you stem an A, remember they're going to clump back up. Now, the advantage is a stem an A, they will all come up and fire, so you get more DPS, but you're going to have to split them because they're going to group back up. So you have to get the vision of knowing where the banglings are and start splitting them. So that's kind of a way of what you want to do as well. Now, other things you can do if you want to improve your gameplay with something like this pushing out, what I could do is take these medevacs, and let's say I'm siege there, I can load these up and say, hey, I'm going to run them around and drop to the main, or hey, I'm going to drop these to the natural. while I'm pushing you at the same time here. From there, a lot of times that will do the Zerg in, sometimes because all of a sudden things really get chaotic for them. But guys, that is it. That is the TvZ bronze to diamond builder. Hopefully this helps you guys out. If you need any more information, please comment below in the section and I'll do my best to help you out or get you a list of anything that you need. In the next video, I'll see you guys there. Take care. And if you any kind of video that you want with a bronze to diamond, just let me know below. See you in the next video. Peace.